I think in the last 2 years, the world has witnessed very critical situations and have experienced the critical situations that impacted humanity quite significantly. One is the COVID pandemic, and now this year we have this Russia-Ukraine crisis, which in a way is putting humanity at great difficulty, and the choices becoming limited precisely because the supply chain disruptions have happened for a period of time, and making the livelihood issues a challenge for many countries in the developing world. Also in the developed world in many sense, because when you have these supply chain disruptions happening, suddenly you are having to adjust to this new reality. That is a challenge even for the developed world, as we understand. Increasingly in the days to come, hunger will become a major problem, because countries that are not traditionally growing food crops will have to import, but that import basket is shrinking. And so it will take time for the world to adjust. In terms of manufacturing, in countries that are like India, which are need to do a lot of manufacturing and depend on the inputs coming from outside, technology coming from outside, will be also facing a great challenge in terms of maintaining the stable economic world, which is why this cooperation of the G7 countries is very timely. I'd like to congratulate the Federal Republic of Germany for this chairship of G7 during this year, during which a lot of ideas have been discussed, debated at the ministerial level, and you're soon going to have a summit in which our Prime Minister will also be participating, G7 outreach countries in that context. And already at the ministerial level, at the official level, a lot of ideas have been thrown for discussion to come out with solutions. And this is precisely what this debate today will capture, the new horizons of international cooperation. Now, one of which is the Just Energy Transition Partnership that Germany is taking lead in the G7. A lot of ideas are there. And India has contributed to this debate and discussion. And we are continuing to work with the German leadership on this important initiative. But I think we also need to be careful in how we are heading. Countries like developing countries like India, which are in the transition itself. And that is, the transition phase is quite long. And we have to understand the challenges that countries like India face when you face with a billion plus population, 1.4 billion, and manufacturing sector still at a stage where the efficiencies are not still very high. The transition will become extremely challenging. So if you overnight you have to shut down your coal plants and move to a higher level of energy or renewables, it's not easy. So we discussed these elements when we were in the G7 context, how this transition would need to be smoother for countries like India, and also for the industry within India, how they are enabled to make the true smooth transition. We also need to reckon with the fact that there is a difference between power and energy, power and electricity. So energy has two kind of, so power and electricity. Electricity is for civilian use. This is a day-to-day, but industrial energy is actually coming from a much higher output, which is fossil fueled and coal based. So India is still dependent, about 65% of energy coming from, for the industrial use, coming from coal based or fossil fuel based energy. So that high dependency and needing to transit from there, transition taking from there into greener energies would be a big challenge. And that's where Germany can come in with the green hydrogen technologies that it has, the renewable energy technologies that it has. It's a very, very important technologies, and already some collaborations are taking place. And along with that, what we would be needing, and I know Germany is taking the lead on this, is the financing arrangement, the funding part of it, the blended financing arrangements that need to accompany that transition phase. And it is a very crucial factor. And when you look at that transition phase, also have to have a commercial linkage. So we have to look at the entire JETP in the context of finally the transition leading to a commercially viable propositions that will able to yield a win-win situation to both sides. The third aspect of this is actually while you are transition, you are having to face this huge carbon taxation issues, which again Europe is talking about environmental goods tax. Then you have the aviation fuel tax, and so and then you have the carbon tax coming in various forms, which is again hitting the market access for Indian goods, and then it will again affect our the economic growth. So one need to be wary about these trends and accordingly try and see that the transition to smoother energy, green energies remains smooth. I think that is one aspect. We talked about food security and how the world is going to face challenges in terms of the hunger and the food supply chains being disrupted. But there again, India's experience would be useful. We've been saying that, in the WTO context, can we look at provisions that will help countries like India, which have experience in having this food grain stock, being able to support countries feeding in terms of crisis. We have to find a way out. So public stock holding, the peace clause, we have to revisit this debate. The agreement on agriculture within the WTO context, we need to revisit. And I believe the ministerial conference, which is likely to take place on later this month, would provide an opportunity for all the countries to discuss and debate. How do we make a more flexible, rule-based multilateral trading systems that are able to assist countries in the food security context? And in doing so, you have to address the fertilizers shortages that are there around the world, the seeds that need to move in seamlessly. It is just not the food grain production, but there are a lot of components which are part of this, which is even the agriculture implements. We have to look at the entire scope of food security enhanced. And I believe if the rules of the multilateral trade rules, if you stitch them in a manner that facilitates the food security, would provide solutions. The third aspect of the new horizons, again, I've come to this idea of trilateral cooperation, which I've been talking about it within my own area of work, because no one country can do everything in the development context, the development cooperation context. Can we look at India and Germany doing trilateral projects in third countries? So India has affordable technologies, you have skills. Germany could come with its own technologies, with own funding arrangements, be able to do projects in Africa, Latin America, and South Asia, including. Can we do projects, both infrastructure, high impact projects, which are able to create jobs locally and at the same time revenue generation takes place in those countries. So these are the ideas we can work together. And I think most importantly, whatever one does under the trilateral cooperation, it should have a people-centric focus, and the program should be able to create a local value. That is very important when you are talking about trilateral cooperation. So I think most of it is captured within the in the recommendations of the Intergovernmental Consultative Committee of India and Germany. All that needs to be done is you need to implement effectively and keep monitoring it regularly. I think the businesses on both sides and the policymakers on the both sides will need to have a give a close attention to these trends. So I just want to stop here. I think one point I can again add here is the cooperation in the health sector. And there again, India and Germany have excellent research, medical research institutions. And the time has come for us to do joint research, develop new molecules, develop new solutions for the precisely to tackle epidemics like the COVID-19 that affected the whole world and disrupted the whole world economy in one way or the other.